Wanda.
Yes, I don't fully agree with this sort of strategy, because I do know that, it is 21.9 billion US dollars that, the oral team have told us is involved. And, there's public sensitization and letting the public know about this level of corruption. However, for instance, if you look at this document, the properties list from Yoko, or compiled by Yoko, and he adduced this or shared this, this would be an even more powerful document if it had, a court stamp on it and date, and it was adduced in evidence. So his approach, although it is to sensitize the public, is wrong, because even the current finance minister went through this himself, and a courtroom is an open, a public place where the media can come if it's in the public interest, etc. But he also mentioned, and you didn't play that the reason why he hasn't actually brought charges is that they're still compiling evidence. So if you haven't got all your ducks in a row, why would you fully criminalize someone in the public domain? At least on the day of charging them, do that. And I say this as someone who has worked at the Attorney General's Department like 14 years ago, even though it wasn't within the criminal department. But, I've done this in the UK as well. This is pure white-collar crime, layering, money laundering and masking. It's an obvious case. The Attorney General will win on this. But it is better that as he wishes to go on, he should start well and adduce this in a court of law, even on the day you file. You know what I mean? Maybe that filing can be leaked if you want, etc., in the public interest or whatever. But for him to actually say in that video that it wasn't shown, that he hasn't actually got all the evidence in terms of they're still finalizing their case only when he is absolutely sure that it's an airtight case.
That's in respect of one of them. That's in respect of one of them on the oral issue. But for Eduboahene and his wife and their several companies and, dozens of homes, he says that one, he's very sure about it.
But charges haven't been brought.
He can get conviction, and actually saying that the other people in the companies, they should think about it. They know how the monies have been moved, etc. Some of them can really come and be used as witnesses, do plea bargain, so that they don't get incarcerated.
Yes, but he is also a member of the bar, first and foremost, and he's in fact the leader of the bar. And there is a standard, right to a fair trial, presumed innocence, until proven guilty, etc. And he is a professor of law, and these are the benchmarks I think he must follow, because anybody can look at this evidence and say it's an airtight case, he's going to win it. So why not wait a few more weeks as they compile that in order for a charge to be brought? Because everyone is presumed innocent until proven guilty.
He's a public officer.
He is, but there is a fine line.
Is he entitled to let the public know?
He's entitled to let the public know that there's 21.9 billion. And these are highlights of the case we just filed last week, like top 3, etc. But it is a public persecution to a certain extent. This is done in a court of law, and it's an open courtroom where, in the public interest, all the media would be allowed in, even the evidence, the exhibits, the filings, everything. But we cannot make it a habit and normality to adduce this level of evidence and focus on individuals, focus on the policy. Focus on the things you've just filed. Focus on the fact that you're liaising with international counterparts. Because if we're talking about 21.9 billion, I don't think it's in the country. You know what I mean? The majority of that wouldn't be in the country. So,
he's talking about specific cases,
yes,
where they can trace the monies.
Yeah.
That were, in Eduboahene's case, you're saying you're buying a certain software for the use of the country. The money is paid, and then the money is found to have been withdrawn and used to buy houses and all sorts of things.
Masking, layering, money laundering, particularly as a public officer, is wrong. There's a higher standard. He was only given that money because he was in a position of trust. And so he is a public figure, and this is why this is happening to him. But procedurally, I don't think it would have been wrong if the Attorney General had that press conference on the exact day he filed.
Oh, okay.
That's my okay. Because that's...
Because you are used to other jurisdictions, so I was going to ask you, in the US, we see the DA's office, they do press conferences.
Yeah.
We see them almost everywhere. Even here in Ghana, the police issue statements about, you know, suspects and what they have found and so on and so forth. And also the Office of Special Prosecutor, by the workings of their law, also go out and say these things.
Yes, the mayor of New York, I think, is being charged currently.
Right.
And it is something that is in the public interest for New York, that jurisdiction. But I also think he was charged, you know, before all of this information came out. So there's a fine line, and I think it's wonderful that he holds press conferences because the public do want to know what happened to that 21.9 billion. And we want to know that it's something that never happens again. And the only way that can happen is if we hold these people to account who did this. And we're talking about jail time, retrieval of money, and working with, you know, international counterparts. But still, there is a presumption of innocence until proven guilty.
Right. Victor?
Yes, I think that, yes, there's nothing wrong when the Attorney General decides to carry the public along by giving them information, especially when there is an allegation of some criminal activities where some other people are involved. This is about taxpayers' money. When it comes to, so once it's taxpayers' money, is a public issue, people have interest in it, the public, because there is an allegation that there has been corruption. People were involved. So you want to carry the citizens along by giving them information. Now, he is a public officer. He is the principal advisor to government. Now, government owes the people the duty to provide information that this is what has been done. In the other vein also, he is a lawyer, right? So when he puts on the hat as a public officer giving information to the people that this is the job you've given to me, so far, this is what we have done. This is what we have seen. The matter is not in court as at now. So he's giving them information. But now, if the matter moves into court, by our ethics, you cannot be a lawyer in the matter whilst you are prosecuting the matter and still be doing a trial. That is why you say you are trying in the media.
Is there no exception for public interest matters?
In public, that is why we have the journalists and others who come into the court and they report what has to be done.
So he could only have done it before he went to court.
Yeah, he went.
After he goes to court,
after he goes
he's
to
not
court,
allowed
I'm
to do
sure
that.
it will be unethical for him to be saying, maybe the PRO to the Attorney General, what is going on, that he may brief people. But for him as a person to come into the media and say, I think ethically it will not be right. So I think that what he's done so far is to, but he should also, it should be a balancing act, because taking a clue from what had happened previously, we have seen information being given to the public. At the end of the day, it was largely more propaganda than the actual matter, the facts that were presented in court. And, you know, people had perception that if this is the information you are giving to us, why is it that you are not getting conviction in the matters, and the matters prolonged? These are things that I think that the Attorney General should have that balancing act to make sure that the facts that you have, the details, all the people are entitled to know that this is the stage we've gotten to, this is what we said, this is what we have found, and the court will take over when we are in court. You present the facts before them. But if you do it the other way around, you may have problem, because with my practice, the little years that I have, almost 2 decades in this, you realize that when the matter has been given some slant in the media or within the public domain before it gets to court, the judges are very, very careful, because already the atmosphere has been poisoned. So in handling the matter...
So this puts undue pressure on the judges?
It puts pressure on the judges, and the judges are also very careful
And is that
in
good?
handling the
And
matter.
is that good?
I don't think it is. In one vein, it engages the public opinion. But as a judge, fidelity to the law and what you think the law says.
So if you do this and then say you poison the atmosphere and then prove beyond reasonable doubt you don't meet that threshold and the person is acquitted and discharged,
Yes,